So if you're over 50 and you've noticed your vision just isn't what it used to be, things are a little blurrier, you need more light to read, your eyes are drier or more tired, I need you to hear this. Most of that isn't just aging. A lot of it is driven by three very specific, very fixable habits, and at least one of them is something you've probably never connected to your eyes at all. The leading causes of vision loss after 50, macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts, chronic dry eye, they're not just things that happen to you. They accelerate or slow down based on choices you're making right now, and the science behind that is a lot more specific and a lot more actionable than anything you've probably been told. 3 habits, solid research, plain language. Let's get into it. So let's talk about what's actually happening inside your eye as you get older. Your retina, the thin layer at the back of your eye that converts light into the images you see, is one of the most metabolically active tissues in your entire body. It burns through more oxygen per unit of weight than almost any other organ, including your brain. And that level of activity comes at a cost. It produces cellular damage. Constantly. Every day from the moment you open your eyes. When you're younger, your body handles that pretty efficiently. Good circulation brings nutrients in and flushes waste out, and the repair mechanisms are working the way they should. But after 50, those systems start losing ground. The balance tips, and that daily wear accumulates faster than your body can clean it up. Macular degeneration isn't something that switches on overnight. It builds over years, sometimes decades, of microscopic damage adding up. Little deposits form under the retina. Blood vessels can start growing where they shouldn't. Pressure in the eye creeps up and slowly compresses the optic nerve. None of it is dramatic at first, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. So what does that actually mean for you? It means the window to do something about this is right now, not when your vision starts going, not after your eye doctor mentions early changes at your next exam. Right now, while the damage is still manageable, while the habits can still make a measurable difference. And I want to be honest with you about something. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this is how people end up losing things they didn't realize they were taking for granted. Someone who loved to read, who watched their grandkids' faces at the dinner table, who drove themselves everywhere and never had to ask for help. And slowly, gradually, that changes. Not from one bad diagnosis, from years of small mornings that added up the wrong way. I've seen it, and they almost always say the same thing. I just didn't think it would happen to me. It doesn't have to go that way. That's what this is about. So with that in mind, let's talk about the 3 habits that the research actually supports. And we're starting with the one that most directly feeds your retina what it needs to survive. Habit 1 is eating for your eyes specifically. Not just eating healthy in a general sense. Eating for the one part of the eye that, once it degrades, you cannot get back. The nutrient we're talking about is called lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 plant pigments your body cannot produce on its own. You have to get them from food. And here's what catches almost everyone off guard. Your retina actively concentrates these compounds. It pulls them out of your bloodstream and deposits them right in the macula, the small central region responsible for your sharpest, most detailed vision. Reading, faces, driving, all of that lives in the macula. Think of lutein and zeaxanthin as the macula's own built-in sunscreen and antioxidant shield. They absorb damaging blue light before it hits the photoreceptors underneath. They neutralize the cellular wear and tear we just talked about. They are, essentially, the macula's frontline defense system. When those levels drop, and they do drop with age, especially if your diet isn't replenishing them, that defense system thins out. And the damage that used to get intercepted starts getting through. I see this constantly. Someone comes in, they're not eating badly by any normal measure. But when you look at what's actually on their plate, the foods that contain meaningful amounts of lutein and zeaxanthin are basically absent. Eggs most mornings. But no yolk, because they've been told to avoid it. Salads, but iceberg, which has almost none. And they have no idea there's even a connection. So what foods are we actually talking about? Dark leafy greens are the biggest source, kale and spinach specifically. Egg yolks, and yes, the yolk matters because the lutein in eggs is in a form your body absorbs better than from many supplements. Orange and yellow peppers. Corn, broccoli, not exotic, not expensive. Everything you need is at a regular grocery store. The gap isn't access, it's awareness. The research on this is about as solid as it gets in eye nutrition. The National Eye Institute ran the AREDS 2 trial. Over 4,200 participants aged 50 to 85 followed for 5 years across 82 clinics in the United States. They were specifically tracking lutein and zeaxanthin and their effect on macular degeneration progression. People getting these nutrients showed reduced progression to advanced AMD and slower visual acuity decline compared to the placebo group. Let me put that in plain language. Slower vision loss. Measurable. In a controlled trial. In people who already had early to intermediate macular degeneration. That's not a minor finding. That's the difference between managing your condition and watching it accelerate. Now, let me be clear here, because I don't want this to sound like a supplement ad. This doesn't mean you need to run out and buy a pill today, though your doctor may recommend one depending on your situation. What the evidence actually points to is the dietary foundation. Getting these nutrients consistently from real food over time, that's what moves the needle. A handful of spinach a few times a week, eggs at breakfast, an orange pepper with lunch. Not dramatic, but compounded over months and years, they're feeding the exact tissue that needs it most. And if you're someone who already has some early changes in your eyes, if your doctor has mentioned drusen, if you've noticed some mild blurring in your central vision, this is especially for you. Because the AREDS2 research wasn't done on perfectly healthy eyes. It was done on people in your situation. The evidence applies to you directly. Habit 2, and this is the one that genuinely surprises people most. Exercise protects your eyes, not in a vague, everything is connected kind of way, in a direct, measurable biological mechanism kind of way. And when you understand how it works, it's hard to set aside. Let's start with glaucoma, because this is where the data is most striking. Glaucoma damages your optic nerve, the cable that carries everything your eye sees straight to your brain. And the main driver of that damage is pressure building up inside the eye, pressing on the nerve over time. Slowly, silently. Most people have no idea it's happening until they've already lost peripheral vision they can never recover. Aerobic exercise has a direct, measurable effect on that pressure. It brings it down. During exercise and in the recovery period afterward, pressure inside the eye drops. The more consistently you exercise, the more that effect compounds. Published data looking across multiple trials found that people who met basic physical activity guidelines, 150 minutes a week, which is 30 minutes 5 days a week, had a 50% lower risk of developing glaucoma compared to people who were completely sedentary. Half the risk, from walking, from cycling, from anything that gets you breathing a little harder 5 days a week. And a separate analysis from UCLA using National Health Survey data found the most physically active people had a 73% lower risk of glaucoma compared to the least active. Let that land for a second. This connects back to what we said about damage accumulating in the retina. Exercise improves blood flow to the optic nerve and the retina. It flushes metabolic waste. It reduces the kind of chronic, low-grade inflammation that drives macular degeneration. These aren't separate benefits. They're the same underlying mechanism working across multiple conditions at once. Now, let me rephrase something here, because I don't want you to hear 54% less AMD risk and picture yourself training for a 5K. You don't need to become a runner. The key insight from that research isn't the mileage, it's the consistency. Any regular aerobic movement, sustained, habitual, a few times a week, starts shifting the odds in your favor. A 30-minute walk, swimming, cycling, Tai Chi. Pick something you'll actually do and do it regularly. And here's where I want to be straight with you. I know someone who spent 20 years hiking every weekend, same trail, same partner, every Saturday morning without fail. Knees started bothering them in their early 60s. They scaled back, then stopped, then the walking shortened. And about 4 years later, at a routine eye exam, the early signs were there. And when we talked about it, what stayed with them wasn't the diagnosis. It was realizing that the one thing they'd stopped doing was exactly the thing that had been protecting them. The connection wasn't obvious. Nobody had ever told them. The eyes are not a system that waits. Optic nerve damage from glaucoma is permanent. Vision lost to advanced macular degeneration doesn't come back. And the research is clear that regular aerobic movement is one of the most direct tools we have for slowing both. Now you know. So the question is just what form that movement takes for you. The form matters a lot less than the frequency. Pick something sustainable, something you'll actually do, and do it consistently enough that your cardiovascular system, and by extension, your optic nerve and your retina, stays well supplied, well cleared, and under less pressure. Literally. Habit 3. And this one pulls everything together. Sleep protects your eyes. Not just because tired eyes are uncomfortable, not just because you wake up dry and irritated after a bad night, but because sleep is when your eyes actually repair themselves. All day long, just from doing the work of seeing, your retina accumulates cellular damage, the same wear and tear we talked about at the start. The cleanup doesn't happen while you're awake and active. It happens overnight while you're out. When that window gets cut short, the damage starts compounding. So check this out. Researchers pulled from the UK Biobank 380,000 people tracked for over 12 years. They were looking at sleep patterns alongside the development of 4 major eye diseases: cataracts, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, and macular degeneration. And across every one of those conditions, they found the same pattern. Sleep duration followed a U-shaped relationship with eye disease risk. Too little, risk goes up. Too much, risk also goes up. The sweet spot was 7 hours, not 6, not 8 or 9. 7. A separate study using National Health Survey data, over 5,000 adults aged 40 and older, found that sleeping less than 7 hours a night was associated with a 36% higher risk of early macular degeneration. After controlling for age, weight, smoking, diabetes, blood pressure, all of it, the sleep connection held on its own, 36% higher risk, from something that barely registers as an eye health issue. And this connects directly back to habits 1 and 2. The lutein and zeaxanthin in habit 1 are intercepting damage during the day. But sleep is when the deeper cellular repair happens, the kind that actually restores what was stressed. The exercise in habit 2 keeps circulation and pressure healthy, but poor sleep drives up systemic inflammation and unwinds much of that benefit overnight. These 3 habits aren't a menu to pick from. They're reinforcing the same underlying biology. So what does better sleep actually look like in practice? Consistent timing matters more than most people give it credit for. Going to bed and waking at roughly the same time every day, including weekends, keeps your body's internal clock stable, and that clock governs a lot of what happens during overnight repair. Evening light exposure, especially from screens, disrupts that signal directly. There's a real irony in scrolling to wind down before bed. The same blue light your macula is filtering during the day is now suppressing the hormonal signal that tells your body it's time to repair. A dark room, a consistent bedtime. 7 hours as the target, not the ceiling. The evidence says these things show up on a scan 12 years later. Pick one of these 3 habits, the one that felt closest to home when you heard it. Start there. Be consistent with it for a few weeks and pay attention. That's it. That's the whole ask. Take care of your eyes. They're showing you everything. If this was useful, subscribe. There's a lot more coming on what the research actually says about protecting your health after 50, in plain language, without the noise. I'll see you in the next one.